Hello, everyone, and welcome to the last minute of play in the third period. How's it going, boys? It's after Christmas.
Yeah. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Merry Chrysler.
Merry Chrysler. And New Year, some new things. Everybody wave to the camera.
They can't see us yet. You said you were going to face an after the horn.
Oh, God damn it. That's a all right. Well, I'm not. Yeah, we're leaving that in.
It's too early for this. We're leaving that in. But yes, you are now able to watch a video version of this show on our new YouTube channel, but we'll get into that afterwards. Last minute of play in the third period. Nick Foles. We're going to talk about Nick Foles for a second. Mm-hmm. So Nick Foles has had a bunch of riders in his contract to earn him performance bonuses.
I saw this.
So he got, I think it was a couple million if he played 33% of the Eagles snaps, which he hit that benchmark in the final game of the season to meet that one. But he also had a rider in his contract for playoff performance. Yes, Johnny, go ahead.
Oh, so are we talking about the one that was before, like, the season ends? Or
no.
Or not? Oh, okay.
No, Nick Foles actually got another $1 million for winning a playoff game.
Oh, okay.
So wait, does he get an extra $1 million for every one he wins?
I'm not sure.
Yeah.
But he did get an extra one for winning the one that they won last night.
Yeah, because he missed out on $1 million because he was like 4 snaps short of playing 33% of the season or something like that.
But so the total compensation for Nick Foles this season is $12.5 million.
For a backup quarterback, essentially.
For a backup quarterback.
Oh, my God.
Not too bad.
Not too bad.
No.
And the Eagles get to roll on. Still get a chance to defend their title.
Mm-hmm. Poor Bears fans.
Thank you for all tuning in. This is Overtime on CHSR 97.9 FM. That horn means you are now entering the extra period. Here with me, Kaylee Etheridge, of course, Sean Crocker, and Johnny James. All right, fellas. Obviously, we sort of have a kind of a format to this show, but I think that since we kind of talked NFL playoffs, we'll keep talking NFL playoffs, and then we'll get into our usual run of things. Mm-hmm. So I guess I'll kind of let you guys pick. Where do you guys want to start?
So where are we starting again?
I guess we should start with the Eagles and Bears.
Okay.
Yeah.
Which was an atrociously bad playoff game. Mm-hmm. Where neither team did anything of relevance for most of the game, and everyone blamed a kicker for missing a field goal at the end of the game that was largely not his fault.
Yeah.
Ooh, that really was a close game. I hadn't seen the score until now.
Yeah, it was 16-15.
Oh, my God.
Yeah.
Barn burner.
It was a pretty bad game overall, and the kicker in question was absolutely not at fault for the miss, because replays showed that it was tipped at the line of scrimmage.
Really?
Yep.
Oh, my God.
Everyone's just making a big deal out of it because he's hit a bunch of uprights this season. So people were like, oh, another miss where he hit the upright, except that he didn't.
Yeah.
The ball got tipped. Mm-hmm. I mean, he did hit the upright, but
yeah,
that probably wasn't the original intention.
And going off of both like the upright post and like the bottom bar, or whatever you call that.
Yeah, the crossbar.
Yeah. Like you were saying before the show that like someone had crunched it and that like it was, if the ball was round, it would have gone in. The only way that kick misses off the upright like that is if the ball.
It's not that anyone crunched the numbers. It's just that it's pretty clear because of the shape of the ball. Like if it was a round ball, it either hits the post and comes immediately back out, mm-hmm. or it goes in. There's no real physical way for it to hit the one post and then hit the crossbar. That's just not a deflection that's possible.
Yeah.
Unless your ball is egg-shaped. Sean's kind of looking at us really quizzically. Do you not know what happened?
Not exactly, no.
Okay, so it was 16-15 for the Eagles. Chicago sets up a game-winning field goal. I don't remember the kicker's name now. Goes for the kick. Goes through the uprights. Turns out he got iced. Turns out that the Eagles coach called a timeout right before the ball was snapped. So he had to retake the kick. On the second attempt, it got tipped at the line of scrimmage, hit the post, and then hit the crossbar, and then came out.
Yeah.
And Poor the Bears lost.
Poor Bears.
Yeah, and like the looks on like the Bears bench and like the crowd and everything like that were pretty. Even their mascot fell over after the kick missed.
Man, I feel bad.
There were a couple of like, I'm not sure how this affected with it points wise, but like there were like each team missed a 2-point conversion.
Yeah, both teams were trying to take advantage of the opportunity to make it so that an actual score made a difference. Like, the reason why we were at 16-15 is that it had been 15-10, and then the Eagles went for 2, or one scored a touchdown, and then went for 2 because they wanted the gap to be 3 points so that the Bears couldn't beat them by just kicking a field goal.
They could tie, but they couldn't beat them,
But that's the thing, is a 2-point conversion is almost entirely a strategic decision. You don't really do it for any other reason. And both teams tried them for strategic reasons and failed.
Yeah.
Because I think at one point it was 10-6, and the Bears went for 2 to try to make it 12-6 so that the Eagles would need like a touchdown and an extra point.
Yeah.
So it was very sloppy.
Yeah, it wasn't a good game. It was a bad game. Both of those teams probably put in the like 6th and 7th worst performances of playoff weekend. Of wild card weekend.
Wow. I'm just looking at the numbers right now.
Like, even
That's
Foles
insane.
wasn't very good.
266 yards.
But the main thing is the Eagles get to roll on.
Yep, they do.
Yep.
And that was actually a thing was, so the Chargers and the Ravens had another game that was also not great. It was better than the other one, but it wasn't great. And the Chargers one was a pretty ugly game against Baltimore. And someone asked Phillip Rivers afterwards, how did you feel about how bad the game went? And Phillip Rivers was just like, what was the final score? And someone was like, this. I don't care.
Yeah.
It's the playoffs. If I have to win ugly games in the playoffs, I'll win ugly games in the playoffs.
Hey, if you win by 1 or 15, it's all the same.
And what was it? Baltimore needed to like win by a touchdown.
They needed a touchdown to win.
Yeah.
In the final drive.
Yeah, and then they fumble. Then
Lamar Jackson.
yeah,
fumbled.
they got stripped. Well, stripped.
He got
fumbled.
stripped.
Yeah, basically, and that was the game for them.
But he had a bad game. I think Jackson had 3 fumbles over the course of that game. Like, it was not good. Not a good game for Baltimore. It's amazing they were in it at all.
Baltimore's quarterback was the youngest quarterback to start a playoff game.
That is true. He was 21, which is the youngest, which makes him the youngest quarterback to start a playoff game.
I wonder who was the youngest before. Was it Tom Brady?
I think it was Mark Sanchez, actually.
Oh, okay.
The Sanchez.
Sanchez. It's actually a great name.
No, it's not. He was awful. He was bad.
Awfully amazing.
Yeah.
Mind you, he did beat Tom Brady in a playoff game, so credit where credit's due, I suppose.
Fair enough.
Um,
So the other 2 games for NFL playoffs?
Yeah, the other 2 games were the Seahawks and the Cowboys, which was the only actual good game this weekend. The Cowboys did not deserve to win, but they did.
Yep.
24-22. And then you might notice, I don't really have a lot to talk about for the Seahawks-Cowboys game because it was a pretty good game where both teams played pretty good football and it ended with a pretty good result. I didn't watch a lot of that game because I was still really sour about the game that aired before it. Because as I said, the Eagles and the Bears gave up the 6th and 7th worst performances of, or 6th and 7th, worst performances of Wild Card Weekend. Anyone want to guess who I think gave up the 8th worst performance of Wild Card Weekend?
It wouldn't be your Houston Texans.
It was my Houston
Rest in
Texans.
peace.
They were so bad.
So tell us about your feelings. Okay, let's dissect this. You being the having an avid football team that's
Having a
actually in the
stake in it.
playoffs. Where'd they go wrong?
Okay, so game starts and Indianapolis scores on the opening drive. That's nothing new if you're a Texans fan. We've given up more opening drive touchdowns than any team in the NFL. It just hasn't mattered because we've been good otherwise. And then we did nothing right. Gave the ball back to Indianapolis. They scored a touchdown again. Okay, 14-0 is kind of scary, but, we're still really early. Nothing happens with the offense for the rest of the first quarter. And then second quarter, Houston gets a 4th and 5 at about midfield, and they decide to go for it. The ball gets intercepted. Most people at that point were just like, oh my God, interception on 4th and 5. But that didn't really matter because we were going to lose the ball, turnover on downs anyway, because we were going for it on 4th down. So the interception was essentially a really crappy punt.
Okay.
Which is what we would have done on 4th down otherwise. And then the actual turning point of the game was it's 21-0 in the second quarter, and Houston has a 4th and 1 on the Indianapolis 6. And instead of trying to run the ball for the 1 yard, and I get the apprehension to doing it because Alfred Blue and Lamar Miller had been having bad games up to that point in time, they decided to pass the ball on 4th and 1.
Okay.
And it was incomplete. And we turned the ball over on the Indy 6, and they went all the way down the field.
Yeah.
They didn't score on that one, though, because there was an interception, if I'm not mistaken, on that drive, because J.J. Watt tipped a ball at the line of scrimmage, and it got intercepted. But it was just the nail in the coffin, was that Houston needed points really, really badly, and went for it on 4th and 1, which I don't hate as a decision. You're down by 3 touchdowns. You need a touchdown.
Yeah.
I just don't like the passing decision. And I get that they've used similar plays to that multiple times that year to great success, but why would you... It's a playoff game. Mm-hmm. Indy is one of your divisional rivals who you've already played 2 times this year.
Yeah.
They know what you're going to do on 4th and 1. Run the ball.
I mean, historically, when you're that close, it's probably a higher percentage to run the ball, correct?
I mean, yes, you also have a mobile quarterback in Deshaun Watson. Like, you could have just had him try to run the ball. I don't like the pass. And yes, it was pointed out by numerous people that, Hopkins did get free. And if Watson had actually thrown the pass correctly, he would have been able to catch it and it would have been a touchdown. But, would have, could have, should have. Like, that isn't what happened.
It's a big bucket of ifs.
Yeah.
That's all it is.
And Indy played really, really well. Credit where credit's due. And Indy was probably the better team. They started the season 1-5, and a lot of people might not think so because Houston obviously pretty much had the division locked up weeks ago. But Houston had, the big 9-game winning streak in the middle of the year, and everyone pointed out the Houston and Indy playoff game was the most improbable playoff game in NFL history because it featured teams that at one point in the season were 0-3 and 1-5 respectively.
That's usually kind of like a nail in the coffin.
Yeah.
When you get
it was just...
Yeah.
And then Indy won 9 of their last 10. And then Houston had a 9-game winning streak to get to 9-3. But you have to remember that Houston finished 11-5, so they got to 9-3. And then their last 4 games, they were 2-2. Mm-hmm. So Houston didn't really have a lot of momentum. Indianapolis had a ton of momentum. And Houston didn't have a good secondary. Even last week during Sunday Night Football, when it was the Colts and the Titans to determine who was going to play Houston, I was begging for it to be Tennessee because I was hoping we'd have one more week to try to get our secondary sorted out. But realistically, if we didn't lose to Andrew Luck this week, we were going to play Tom Brady next week, and we were probably going to lose to Brady.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing, though. It's
and not
because
it's the Patriots, but because our secondary was bad. And if you have a bad secondary and you play a quarterback like Tom Brady, you lose.
You get fried. But no, that just sucks. I mean, I feel sorry for you only because you had to play a scorching hot team. What can you do though?
We had home field advantage against a rival. You're supposed to win those games. If you don't, you don't.
Yeah. And you should be able to. But
so now I'm back on the Eagles train because I'd like to see them repeat. I don't think they will. They play New Orleans this week, and that seems like a tall task, but who knows? I really want the Chargers to beat the Patriots and the Chiefs to beat the Colts because I would really, really like to see the AFC West teams that fought for the division lead and both finished at 12-4 play in the AFC Championship game because just by records, they're the 2 best teams. So I'd like to see that match. It'd be the 3rd meeting between 2 rivals from the same division, arguably the best division in football. Some might say that's the AFC South. Hard to say. And then, we go from there. Someone was saying that we actually have the possibility of what people affectionately call an unholy Super Bowl.
What's that?
You could have the LA Chargers play the LA Rams.
Ew.
Oh, jeez.
That is within the realm of possibility.
Yeah. Are they in different...
Yeah, they're in different conferences.
That's weird.
Well, you have to remember that the AFL and the NFL were actually entirely separate leagues.
Yeah, that's true.
And then when they merged, you ended up with some weird idiosyncrasies where you had multiple teams in LA, multiple teams in New York.
Yeah, that's true.
Now you have... that's 2 of them. The big joking one that at least Texans fans kind of call the Holy Super Bowl is because of King of the Hill. King of the Hill literally had an entire bit in the show about the All-Texas Super Bowl.
Oh, God.
Because Dallas is in the NFC and Houston's in the AFC. So you could have the Texans play the Cowboys. And there's literally a scene where they're talking about, it was the year that Houston came into the league, and the guys are saying, like, well, do we still cheer for the Cowboys, or do we switch over to the Texans? And Hank's like logicking it out to everyone, like, well, we don't have to cheer against the Cowboys. They play in different conferences. They'll only play each other like once every 7 or 8 years. So, we don't have to worry about it. So we can cheer for both teams. The only time that it would ever be a conflict of interest is if they met in the Super Bowl. And then he looks up to the sky and he goes, "In all Texas Super Bowl, thy will be done."
Yeah. Wait, isn't I thought it was. Oh wait, no, never mind. I was thinking Tennessee Titans there for a second, but no, Houston Texans. But yeah. So
that's the team that used to be the Houston Oilers, is the Tennessee Titans.
Yeah, that'd be like the greatest thing since what was it, Denver and Seattle, and people called it like the Super Bowl because it was the 2 states with legalized weed.
Yeah, it sure was.
Should we move on from here?
Yeah.
Should we talk ACAA?
Yeah, we'll talk ACAA and AUS. Sean has our score roundup, and then we'll talk a little bit about first week of action. Sean, go ahead.
All right, first weekend, it was a lot of hockey. So UMB women's hockey kicked off their second half in Nova Scotia this weekend, where they fell 2-1 to the St. FX X-Women. They finished the weekend at Dalhousie, where the Tigers edged the Reds 4-3. The men hosted the St. Mary's Huskies Friday night, where they topped the rival 3-1. And Saturday night, they welcomed the Acadia Axemen to Fredericton, where they grinded out a tough 4-3 win to continue their winning ways. St. Thomas Tommies played host to the third-place St. Mary's Huskies Saturday afternoon, where Abby Clark posted 31 saves en route to a 3-1 victory, extending their lead in first place in AUS. They extended their winning streak to 12 games Sunday afternoon, earning a 2-0 shutout win in PEI, where they edged the UPEI Panthers. And that is your AUS ACAA Roundup.
One minor correction. Their lead didn't get extended at the top of the standings because X won both their games this weekend too.
I meant with respect to teams below them. I should have specified that.
Yeah, you mean the 2 teams in the bye positions expanded from the bottom.
Yeah, like the spread got extended.
Yeah, so neither on the men's side, I guess we'll touch on really, really quickly. This is sort of what we've expected. So Gardner's team comes back from Christmas and they still win.
Yeah. What was the score again from Acadia?
4-3.
4-3?
Yeah.
Oh, that's closer than I thought it was going to be.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you're coming out of the break, right? You might be a bit rusty.
Yeah. Yeah, they did look very rusty. I was at the game, the St. Mary's game on, I guess it'd be Friday, and they did look really rusty out of the gate. I believe Smooth took a 1-0 lead in that game, but it was about halfway through. Just like not having like the kind of jump and everything like that. Then a couple key goals and everything like that. Scary kind of incident I do want to like point out from that game was Samuel Dove McFalls took a massive hit. I forget who the St. Mary's player was, but like I haven't gone back and watched the replay yet. I'm not sure whether it was the head, but he keeled over in a way that he definitely like has some sort of like concussion symptoms. He was on the ice laying flat out, legs were twitching and all that kind of stuff. It took a couple minutes for him to kind of start moving again.
Essentially, he's reliving Christmas because he got knocked into last week.
Yeah, basically. Like that was hands down the hardest hit I've seen at any Reds game.
At like the college level?
Yeah, at the college level since I started watching it. So hopefully, I haven't heard any updates on that yet. Daily Gleaner has a paywall, so I'm not sure if they've given updates or anything like that. I haven't been able to read any of their stuff, but hopefully he will be okay because he has been a pretty key part of that team as well. One of the 4 QMJHL recruits they had, so hopefully he's okay there. But other than that, Dubois got the first star in that game. He looked really good, and they haven't lost in regulation yet, so it's pretty much status quo up to this point of the season, even coming back off the break and looking a little rusty.
Well, I'm glad that you mentioned that Dubois got the first star. Mm-hmm. Do you happen to know how many saves he made?
Something like 29 or 30 or something like that. It was a pretty good win. Like both, like the two, like goaltending. It really did come down to goaltending in that game and everything like that. Because even though St. Mary's did kind of put the pressure on and everything, where it did have the jump, like when the Reds finally like got their legs under them, they had some pretty good shots and everything like that. So it was like St. Mary's goalie and then Dubo were like the second and first stars and everything like that. And of course Dubo had to keep the Reds in it early. He made some good saves.
Yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned it because like it really seems, I'm not sure what the lay of the land is on the men's side, but it really does seem that it's being more and more controlled by the goalies and like the standings, I guess, the lay of the land.
See, I don't know how true that is in men's hockey, but since we just finished talking about UNB, we'll transition to women's hockey, where AUS is an entirely goaltender-dominated league. Abby's obviously putting up national recognition numbers, but, you know, Carly Molnar, even some of, like, the smaller, like, weaker teams have really, really strong goalies, like Mount A. Dalhousie. We'll talk about UNB for... Actually, I want to talk about St. Thomas first, because I think that the story here is a lot simpler. Their winning streak gets extended to 12 games. They're 16-2 now, 14-2, something like that.
16.
They're above and beyond the best team in the conference. This team's probably good enough to win a national championship. It's close, but they were awful this weekend.
Oh, yeah. And in the St. Mary's game, I was actually at this game. I was covering that one. And it really seemed like they came out with some fire. And Lauren Henman scored like 3-4 minutes into the game. And then they scored again and then again. And it was just one after another. But then after that, the tides sort of started to shift.
They were puck watching. They stopped playing hockey.
And they took a few stupid penalties too, which didn't really help.
They gave up, 31 shots to St. Mary's?
32.
I think it was 44 to UPEI the next day.
Yep.
Because, again, they scored an early goal and they just held on to the lead for as long as they could. And I get that, you know, arguably Abby Clark is the best player on the team this year. There's some talk.
She's their MVP.
I mean, like, there's Henman and Alexic are putting up good years too, but I think Clark's probably the best player on the team up to this point. You can't rely on her like that.
Nope.
She posted...
You can't wear her out.
Was it back-to-back shutouts this weekend? Did she play both games?
Yeah, I think she played both games, but the St. Mary's was 3-1.
3-1, right.
Yeah.
So it wasn't quite back-to-back shutouts. UPEI was 2-0.
Yeah, so like one goal over 2 games.
But you can't
I'll double-check that.
She faced like 75 shots. It's impressive, but you should be playing better as a team. You are a national championship contender.
Yeah.
You should not be letting your goalie get shelled.
And I don't even think it's necessarily a defensive problem, like a problem for the defense, because
it's kind of a natural tendency, like when you get up like that. Like I think there's you at least sit back at least a certain percentage. I think that's just a mental kind of warfare that.
Oh no, I understand that teams get less aggressive and play to protect a lead.
Yeah.
But we're talking about giving up 44 shots to UPEI.
Yeah, it shouldn't get to that extent and everything like that. Like, there's numbers to suggest that in any league of hockey, like, score effects is a certain thing. Like, if you get up by a bunch, like, I was watching the Oilers and Ducks last night, and Edmonton was up 4-0. But in the third period, like, the Ducks like came back with the shots and everything like that because they're down more. Like, Edmonton's obviously trying to preserve more of the lead. Maybe the shutout for Talbot and everything like that because they could use that sort of like defensive kind of gold star for them. So I think it's just something that like hockey players do at the battle. But like especially if you're going to be like St. Thomas, who like I guess their expectations are a lot higher than they have been previous years. You can't let it get to that point.
No, and I really think the forwards need to do a better job at getting up and down the ice because that's half the battle. That's 50% of the game right there. It's just getting up and down the ice, being able to guard your person and make sure that you're on them at all times. And they just didn't do a good job at watching the point. St. Mary's got a ludicrous amount of opportunities from there. And, a lot of people will turn away when you start talking about Don Cherry, but he always stresses that the plays always start from the point. And they do. And the play from the point is key. And I think St. Thomas has to do a better job at making sure that their opponents don't have that chance. I think once they do that, they're by far and away a favorite to win AUS.
Yeah.
If they aren't already.
At this point, like with like what is it now? It's 12 straight?
12 straight.
12 straight.
Yeah.
Like you gotta, if you want to put yourself over the top, you gotta keep nitpicking this stuff even when you're putting on pretty like overall, like pretty dominant performances.
Yeah, I think we mentioned the 12 straight and we mentioned the record, but the thing with AUS in that it is a small conference, the much more telling number is your gap. They have a 5-point gap on St. FX. Yeah. So St. Thomas could afford to lose 2 games and it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Which is a big deal, especially in this conference where it tends to be like very, very bunched up at the top.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It would be in their best interest to keep that going because, like we said, like unfortunately there is kind of like a bias towards the AUS as far as rankings go. And like I'm assuming like the higher they could get up in the national rankings when they get to that point.
It's literally the opposite of men's hockey. In men's hockey, everyone's biased towards AUS, mostly because of UNB and St. FX and how good they've been.
And even St. Mary's
and
this
even
year.
I even say St. Mary's and probably even Acadia, probably.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, you could even argue Acadia.
Mm-hmm. But in women's hockey, it's the exact opposite because AUS teams do very bad at nationals. I think there's 1 bronze medal from the conference as a whole, or 2. I think 1 from St. FX from way back, and 1 from St. Mary's from a couple years ago. Mm-hmm. And otherwise, the AUS has been horribly disappointing at nationals.
Yeah, and that's always kind of like looming over like great seasons like the one that Stu's having. So they, like if they keep this streak going, like they'd have to be considered at least like to keep kind of climbing the rankings though, right?
They're the highest ranked AUS team. I think they're ranked 5th in the country right now.
5th going into the break, I think it was.
Yeah.
So, I mean...
After this week, like, is there any chance they could get, like, 4th or anything like that?
I think there's some hesitation in giving them a higher ranking because a couple years ago, they were ranked 3rd in the country, and I think X was ranked 2nd. Or was it St. Mary's? St. Mary's was ranked 2nd.
Yeah.
And they both went to nationals, and both teams stunk.
Yeah.
Yeah, both teams... Well, Stu lost, like, 4 or 5-0 to Calgary.
No, it wasn't Calgary. It was Guelph.
Guelph. Right,
and
because Calgary
they were the higher ranked seed?
No, Guelph was the top ranked team in the country.
Oh,
St. Thomas actually got shafted by the draw. But
yeah.
Oh, so they were 3rd ranked and they got the 1st rank.
Wasn't it something like that?
But they still got pounded.
They couldn't be on the same side of the bracket as St. Mary's.
Yeah, because the national championship bracket for men's is a little less complicated than for women's. In men's, the rule is 2 teams from the same conference can't play each other in the first round.
Yeah.
Which works because there's 3 conferences that each get 2 bids and 2 wild cards. But in women's hockey, there's 4 conferences that each get 2 bids. And the rule is that 2 teams from the same conference can't play until the final. So what happened was because X was the 2nd ranked team and St. Mary's was the 2nd ranked team and St. Thomas was the 3rd ranked team after their final that St. Mary's won. St. Mary's got ranked 2nd, but it meant that St. Thomas had to be on the other side of the bracket from them. So it meant that the best conceivable ranking St. Thomas could get was 5. But, St. Thomas dropped to 4th, and the team that was ranked 3rd was was UBC. So what happened was Guelph got 1, St. Mary's got 2, UBC got 3. And because UBC and Calgary couldn't be on the same side of the bracket, Calgary had to be ranked like 5th or whatever, which meant St. Thomas had to be ranked 7th to avoid St. Mary's.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
Because Calgary and St. Thomas had to be ranked in such a way as to avoid UBC and St. Mary's. So even though Calgary should have been the lowest ranked team, they were ranked 7th. And even though St. Thomas should have been like the third ranked team, they were ranked like 8th.
Oh, okay.
And they got creamed. I shouldn't say creamed. They got outshot 31-21 and lost 3-0 to Guelph.
Yeah.
But I think the team this year is better than that team.
Oh yeah,
I'll make that argument.
It seems like it for sure. UNB, on the other hand, this is not the weekend that they wanted. Mm-hmm. And it's not just the losses, it's who the losses are to. X is a team you're chasing, and Dalhousie is a team you shouldn't lose to.
Especially in a game where they were leading, it was like, 20 seconds left, and they allowed the tying goal with like a couple minutes left, and then the winning goal. So you don't
47 seconds or whatever?
No, it was like 21 or something.
Oh.
So you don't even get a point.
No.
Out of that, so. And
the thing is, you're fighting for home ice with UPEI, who are trying to prove that the program's good enough to host the national championship.
Yeah.
Like, UPEI did a big thing this past week where they have, like, brand new jerseys and, like, brand new everything.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So, like, they're doing a big push right now, like, we're hosting national championships, here's our new jerseys and XYZ. And the thing is, UPEI has, like, 2 games in hand on UNB.
And they're tied in points now?
I think UPI's up by. Oh no, UPI lost to St. Thomas, so they're tied in points, but UPI is 2 games in hand.
Yeah.
So they'll currently on with the games in hand, they're ranked ahead of UNB at the moment. Okay.
And it's not good because you really, really want home ice, especially in the first round. The second, if I'm being realistic, a bye is out of UNB's range.
Yes.
They're like 7 or 8 points behind St. FX, and they'd need to catch X by the end of the season, and they just lost a game to X, so like the gap's even wider.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, and that's just it too.
And St. Thomas is another 6 points, 5 points above that. So
yeah,
He's going to be in the top 2 to get home ice through.
Top 2 are buys for the first round.
Yeah, and then it's 3-6, 4-5.
And then it's 3-6, 4-5.
So currently, as it stands, if the playoffs started today, they would draw UPI.
And UPI would have home ice.
Yeah. Okay, so you really have to finish above UPIs because like you're not going to get home ice for like the duration of the AUS playoffs, but you could still get it in the first round.
This sounds crazy for this, but just because of the season they're having and the fact that St. Mary's biggest problem here is just that they can't score.
Yep.
I don't think you're chasing UPEI. I think you're chasing the Huskies.
So you think the Panthers are going to pass the Huskies?
Yeah, St. Mary's is ahead by a point, but UPEI is 3 games in hand, I think, on St. Mary's.
On them? Yeah.
Yeah.
You're not chasing UPEI.
Yeah, you're chasing St. Mary's.
UPEI is actually chasing for a bye because they still have 2 games in hand on X, so that 6-point gap could be as small as 2.
Yeah.
So I think UPEI is playing for a bye, but I think if you're UNB, you're just playing to be better than St. Mary's. Not that you want to concede the idea that you can't get a bye, but if we're being realistic, you're not going to catch either of those teams. And you're definitely not catching St. Thomas, because I'm waiting for fans to start showing up to the Grant Harvey Center with "We may never lose again" signs, because you're getting to that point. This is a longer winning streak than any team in AUS had last year. It ties X's winning streak from 2 years ago.
Yeah.
I don't know what the AUS record is for wins in women's hockey in a single season.
You'd have to do a deep dive on the archives for
like
that
the
one.
streak, but St. Thomas has got to be close.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Definitely.
And I don't think they play any stiff competition for another week. They play UNB on Wednesday, no offense to the Reds. When I say not playing stiff competition, I don't mean you can't win. I mean, historically, you'll lose this game 2-1.
Yeah.
But I think their other game this week's actually a soft one.
St. FX.
Is it actually?
St. FX on Friday, yeah.
Oh, never mind. This week's brutal for St. Thomas then.
Yeah, so the upcoming schedule, so they play UNB this Wednesday. They host St. FX on Friday. Then they don't play until the following weekend where they're in Moncton, and then they go visit St. Mary's.
Okay, that's their softer week. This is the Moncton week. But yeah, I mean, you have a home game against UNB and a home game against X.
Yeah.
If you win both of those,
Like
you've beaten St. Mary's every time this year. And I'm pretty sure because they played the schedule for St. Thomas was top heavy to their better teams. I think once you get past this weekend, you don't play anybody for the rest of the year. Yeah. UPEI one more time.
They play UPEI one more time. St. Mary's 2 more times.
SMU's lost every game to St. Thomas this year, though.
Yeah, and you still play St. FX one more time after this weekend in St. FX.
So you've got 4 tough games after this weekend, and then you're done because your last game against UNB is Wednesday.
Yeah,
maybe yeah.
Yep. And see, it's actually really nice to be able to say St. Mary's isn't as tough as they have been.
And I think UNB is the opposite problem, where I'm pretty sure UNB's back half is brutal.
Yeah.
It really is. I have that schedule up here. Actually, no.
It's okay though. If they're not the Reds not challenging for a bye because it's their first season and everything like that. So
yeah, but I think you're now at the point where you're priced into trying to win a playoff series.
Yeah. So and you're still within the goal of getting home ice, which will give you the best chance to win that. So I think UNB is still in a very good spot. We've I don't want to say we've barely seen this team stumble, but for a first year team, they haven't really stumbled that much coming out of the gate. They've seemed to have kind of rectified their offensive issues a little bit.
I also think they benefited from a really, really low bar to start the season.
Yeah.
They lost their first 4 games, but they lost 3 of them in overtime, and the general opinion was, well, you got 3 points out of it.
Yeah.
And it was good. Yeah, so I have the schedule up here. So they play St. Thomas this week. Then they go visit Mount Allison, and here's where it gets iffy. Then they play UPEI on the 19th, St. Mary's on the 20th, St. Mary's on the 26th, St. FX on the 27th.
Oh,
That's a tough 4-game stretch.
That is the mountain of all Everests right there.
And if they can climb that mountain, then they deserve the bye.
So you play 5 games against the top 4 teams in the conference in your first 3 weeks back after Christmas, or 3 of your first 4 weeks.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And they play UPEI 2 more times. They play Moncton once.
Moncton doesn't matter.
Mount A twice.
Mount, I mean, like those that should be 4 points.
See, I would still be afraid of Moncton though, to an extent, because
I'm not.
it's still a team that can burn you.
A team small.
Villeneuve will burn you though.
Sure, okay.
She can win you a game.
I just don't think that Sarah's going to let it get to a point where Catherine Villeneuve gets to run them over.
Yeah, like she did that one time.
Yeah, so
nice
basically in the next couple weeks, we're going to see what this team is made of.
Yeah, so we got about 20 minutes left, so we're going to move on from here because we're just going to do a quick rundown of stuff we're not really going to get into here and just kind of knock it off, and then we'll talk because I know we really want to talk World Juniors. We really, really want to talk about Jon Jones a little bit, and I know that we're probably going to want to talk a little bit about a couple of other things. So really, really quickly, Floyd Mayweather is now 51-0. He won a fight against a kickboxer in Japan. Nobody cares.
Yeah. Like, at this point, like, I'm surprised he's not getting more flack. Like, I know he is getting flack, but, like, he's basically rigging fights for more money at this point, I feel.
Thomas Vanek hits 1,000 games. He's the first Austrian-born player to play that many.
Good on him.
Yeah.
No, see, I'm very familiar with him because back in the day when he played for Buffalo, he was a big leaf killer.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
On the highest of like tiers.
I have Peter Charelli on here. What's Charelli been doing?
Just a couple of trades that like haven't really made like the most sense.
Okay.
Yeah. They acquired Brandon Manning. I think they shipped out Chris Weidman for them as well.
Okay.
I'd have to bring up the trades.
I think they traded Chris Weidman for Alex Petrovic.
Yeah, and then there was another one for Brandon Manning as well, which is, I don't know. It's just kind of questionable, like what he's.
They're making bottom 6 deals when their team's a tire fire.
Yeah. It's not really making a lot of sense. So.
Well, and I really think the Petrovic, like I really like that acquisition. Like, I think he was underused in Florida. If you're behind Keith Yandel, Aaron Ekblad, and whoever else on that defense, like, it's going to be tough. And he's a right shot. He can move the puck. He's the kind of guy that people covet, but to a lower degree.
Yeah.
So, I think he's a good sleeper for Edmonton.
Yeah. But Brandon Manning was like someone on, I forget where they're getting him from, was like a regular kind of like healthy scratch.
Chicago.
Kind of thing.
Yeah.
Wasn't putting up really much better numbers than any of the other defensemen that Edmonton has. Like, basically, like, the big surrounding is, like, Charelli is just throwing stuff at the wall to see what sticks to try and save his job, which I don't think is going to happen. I'm not sure where the Oilers are in a playoff spot. I think
they're not.
They're not in a
I think
playoff
they're
spot.
just out.
Yeah. I think they gained a little bit of ground with the win over Anaheim last night, but yeah.
Bianca Andreescu, whose name I just butchered for sure.
Yeah. Andreescu or something like that. I don't know.
I think it's Andreescu because typically when you have like the double E, because she's Romanian, usually you pronounce them, but it doesn't matter.
Okay.
Just came second at the Auckland Open, which is in like a top tier tennis event. Obviously, her career best ranking up to this point was 143rd. I imagine she'll be higher than that after this event. She was a number 3 in the World Junior standing, so she has some talent. I hope this continues. I feel like every single time that there's a sort of expression that I really like, which is getting a bone and treating it like a steak. And I feel like we do that on this show a lot with tennis, where we have a tennis player go on like a really good run, and then we cover them a lot in the hope that something big comes out of this and they consistently win, and then they never do.
Yeah, well, it's like any country.
It happened with Shapo this summer, and Milos as well. And then Jeannie Bouchard tried to get back into the mainstream kind of headlines and kind of didn't.
Yeah, it's kind of what you have to do when you're like competing in like a sport that your country is not really prolifically known in, although Canada is kind of getting better in that. and that sort of thing.
If you've wanted to own a piece of historic Toronto Blue Jays memorabilia, you can currently bid on the home run ball from the bat flip home run. It's being sold for a lot of money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You have the. Do you have it up there?
I do not have the number.
I have it up here. Up for auction. I don't think it says what the current number is at this point. The reserve bid is $3,500 US. So I'm guessing that's probably just like the starting bid and whatnot. So it'll probably go for like 10 grand or something like that.
Probably.
Yeah.
Maybe more than that. Depends on how much love it gets.
Yeah.
Kawhi Leonard is back, which is good for the Raptors. Not that they've been bad without him.
Well, and he played his first back-to-back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so...
Oh, when I put
think that's a good
Kawhi's
sign.
return on the schedule and everything, I meant when he went to San Antonio.
Oh.
Came back to San
Yeah, oh, yeah.
'Cause I thought you were talking about the fact that he's been resting a bunch.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, that I
Because
guess,
he has been.
Yeah. Well, and
Not
they're,
that they've needed him.
they're being very careful with his health. And I think that's a good thing because you need to keep him rested for the playoffs.
He got outplayed by DeMar
Yeah.
in the
Yeah.
return.
And
And
he got
that's
booed.
all everyone's ever talking about. Well, the boo is the San Antonio thing because Danny Green didn't get booed. When they
Well,
introduced
yeah.
Danny Green, they cheered. They
well-
specifically booed for Kawhi.
Well, exactly,
yeah,
right?
they literally stood next to one another, and Kawhi's just like, "Oh yeah, cheer Danny Green." I don't think, like Kawhi, like he's too good of a player to kind of care
That's
about
not a
that.
genuine boo. That's a sarcastic boo. TFC has a new general manager, Ali Curtis. He used to play soccer at Duke. He used to play for the Tampa Bay Mutiny of MLS. He's been doing a whole bunch of different stuff for a bunch of different ones. He was the sporting director for New York Red Bull when they won the Supporter Shield in 2014, if I'm not mistaken. And he got named general manager of TFC. It's a good hire.
Not bad.
They need a new one after a just awful season.
Yeah.
Yeah, they need to hit the reset button.
And in our one piece of weird news, Tony Hawk announced that apparently he was supposed to be in a Space Jam sequel about skateboarding.
Yeah, so apparently it came out that when the Looney Tunes Back in Action, which was supposed to be this like big Hollywood success to kind of like rejuvenate the brand and everything.
That's the one with Mummy guy, right? Brendan Fraser, whatever. his
Brendan
name
Fraser,
is.
yeah, was the star in that movie. They were going to do that, and then like the next project slated, Tony Hawk had been contacted to do like Skate Jam, so a skateboarding version of Space Jam. But the movie bombs, Back in Action bombed so well, and for good reason. That movie is awful. So it immediately like trashed like every other kind of live action project, including that for the upcoming thing. So I'm not sure how well that would have worked out anyway. I'd much rather see, I guess they're talking about Space Jam 2 with LeBron James. I think that would be much more entertaining, but anyways.
I think that was already confirmed.
No.
If I'm not mistaken, no?
It's not confirmed.
Development hell.
Oh.
Okay.
Okay.
Uh,
way.
14-ish minutes left, so really, really quick. Pedersen's going to be out for a week or two with some sort of sprain. I don't know what the deal is on the Leafs goalies. Garrett Sparks is, I think, out for a week
Day-to-day.
or whatever. It's like day-to-day with a concussion or something.
Anderson is day-to-day, which they should be. Like, you got that's the most important player on your team. So with a groin injury, with a
Let him
goaltender-
rest.
Yeah, let him rest. He needs it anyway.
And Sparks isn't coming back to a job because Hutchinson's playing fine.
Yeah, and I think the shutout bodes well on Saturday. Sorry, Kaylee.
That's fine.
Yeah,
We
but-
didn't have Pedersen.
Yeah, but still, like I guess Hutchison is a good pickup. So like at least they're kind of stable at this point with goaltending. And once
I
they
knew
get
we were
back,
going to
they'll be
lose that
fine.
game when one of the stats they talked about was the fact that since the 1st of December, Pedersen had been involved in all but 5 Canucks goals.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
That's got to be crazier than McDavid's?
That's a pretty ludicrous number.
Yeah.
That's a McDavid number.
Yeah, that's insane.
Really, really quick, Morgan Riley's on pace for 90. He's a Norris candidate.
Yeah,
Good for him.
If he was to hit 90, it would be the first since Ray Bourque did it in 93, 94.
And Nylander scored. Duncan
Yeah.
Keith also scored. Congratulations to those guys.
Everyone's getting the monkey off the back.
Yeah, Nylander literally throwing the monkey off his back.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right, let's actually get into stuff we want to talk about. World Juniors. Lay off Max Comtois first.
Yeah.
And Finland needs to stop pretending they're an underdog in this tournament.
Yeah.
Second.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because one of the quotes from one of the players was, people didn't think we could do it. You guys won 2 gold medals in like the last 4 years.
Yeah.
Who's telling you that you can't win?
You just won your third in the last 10 years.
Yeah, they're
Yeah.
the most successful team this decade.
Are they actually?
Yep. Them and the U.S. both have 3 since 2010.
Canada only has 2.
Yeah.
Must only have 2.
Yeah, Canada's 2. Sweden
See-
has 1.
See, that's good.
Russia has 1.
See, like the whole thing again with Comtois and people freaking out at Canada. Canada lost by 2 fluke goals. Let's not the bounces did not go their way in that.
And we should have won the Finland game because the stick exploded. But if we're talking about like seeding and standings and stuff, we should have lost to Switzerland. So like,
So it's good. Embrace the fact that like we're not the most dominant thing anymore, and that the competition is going to be higher, and we will appreciate the gold medals, the ones that we do get in the coming years.
I also think
That's
bigger
what I
picture is good for the game.
it is.
It's good for growth.
Absolutely.
And Switzerland not winning a medal is kind of a bummer, but them getting to play for a medal is a big deal.
Oh yeah, it was almost similar to the Olympics when Germany had a chance at an Olympic gold.
Yeah.
That would have been huge.
You need to have things like this. And Switzerland has 2 like regular world championship gold medals this decade, or silver medals this decade.
Yeah.
So, bigger disappointment. Denmark literally being just awful, or the Czech Republic.
I think the Czech Republic, because you had the most NHL like seasoned players than any other team.
Yeah, I think the Czech Republic.
They should have won, right? Like, I'm not crazy.
Maybe not should have won, but like
Finland, like
they should have won a medal.
yeah,
they should not have been like. They didn't play the relegation game. They were just like
No.
They beat Denmark, so they avoided relegation.
Okay.
But
so like it was like Canada and Czech were like the 2 lowest before relegation.
no, because the group layout was Russia, Canada, Czech Republic, Switzerland was Group A, and Group B was Sweden, the U.S., Finland, and Slovakia.
Yeah, and that's going to get a hell of a lot harder next year because aren't they? It doesn't. Canada now in a group with USA, Russia.
Yeah,
and
because it's staggered. You have Canada, Russia, USA, Czech Republic in one group with Germany, who are coming up.
Oh no!
And then your other group is the interesting group, because the other group has Sweden in it, sure, Finland in it, sure, but your other 3 teams are Slovakia, Switzerland, and Kazakhstan. So you might legitimately see Kazakhstan upset a team and play a playoff game next year.
Great,
Which I think
hope
is
that
fine.
happens.
I think that's good, and
No.
I think it's good for Switzerland too.
I think
mean,
Germany
if you're
Germany
like
gets the worst conceivable draw.
Yeah, you
100%.
like 4 Big 6 teams.
Yeah.
Oh man, I feel bad for Germany.
Well, me and Johnny were talking about this. Is the Czech Republic a Big 6 team for the World Juniors anymore?
No, it's Switzerland.
They have no medals this decade.
Yeah, that's
Slovakia has 2. When we're talking about the Big
I
6,
guess.
we're talking about the wrong 6th country.
Yeah, it's either Slovakia or Switzerland. Like they're battling for that.
Switzerland doesn't have any medals, so I think it's Slovakia.
Okay,
But,
Yeah.
Switzerland is even past them. Like
But the thing with Slovakia is Slovakia has really good years where they win a medal, and then just awful teams. Like this year, they were garbage.
yeah,
And you're saying when we say this team was garbage, we're not trying to like necessarily talk down a bunch of teenagers. But yeah, they scored 11 goals against Kazakhstan, but
I could score 11 goals against Kazakhstan.
at a point where
Yeah,
Kazakhstan had
fair
nothing to
enough.
play for.
yeah. And you have Sedina and like what was it, Neches, who was
They had Nechas, they had Zadina.
Neches, who was absolutely undisciplined and not like
He took 3 misconducts across 6 games.
yeah. Like I don't want to like put like the extra kind of like steamroller for him. Like oh, he's a leadership. He shouldn't like do this. Like stuff will happen, but like 3 misconducts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're literally
And I'm pretty sure one of them was a 20-minute one for like egregious misconduct.
yeah. And 2 of them were like in the same game against Canada, and Canada scored on both of them. So you basically lost the Canada game for your team.
Yeah.
And you didn't put Zadina in a position where he could get going.
Congrats to Kakko for now being the number 1 overall draft pick.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah. I'm not sure. Like I don't know where is he playing? Is he playing over
In
Europe?
Finland.
He's playing in Finland.
He's playing
Yeah,
in Finland.
for-
HK41 or whatever.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Thought it was Turku.
yeah,
That might be Turku.
No,
Yeah,
no. I
wouldn't
think
say
it's HK.
He's probably past Jack Hughes at this point, but it's the gap is definitely closed at this point.
Oh yeah, and he scored a gold medal winning goal, and no player that scored a golden goal and made the NHL has had like a bad go of it since Halschuk.
Yeah, that's fair.
For the record, Steenbergen's also going to be a bust. No offense to him.
Yeah.
But like, I would like to point something out while we're on the topic of those 2 guys in the draft. Buffalo currently has St. Louis's first round pick and St. Louis is third last. So
No
they
way.
could run Jack times 2. Jack Eichel, Jack Hughes.
Yeah, but if you do that, you have to take Hughes because he and Eichel have got to have played at some point in the development system. Right?
They have to have known each other.
100%.
USNDT,
Yeah.
for sure.
Well, I mean, they're
Who
4
el-
years apart, but
Who else is at the bottom?
Chicago?
Chicago's near there. I think dead last is
Ottawa?
I don't even think they're that.
They're
bad.
dead last in the East.
Here, I'm pulling
Yeah.
up the standings here, but I mean,
It's probably like a combination of.
I'm trying
like,
to think if there's any team in the bottom
Philly?
6 that's like a specifically good fit for Kakko.
Philly maybe
my
no.
question.
St. Louis, LA, Chicago, Arizona,
Arizona wouldn't be bad.
Yeah.
Minnesota's out of the playoff picture. I think Kakko would fit in nice there.
It's the Finnish factory.
Yeah.
Yep. Ottawa. So, yeah. No, nonetheless, so we could see Jack times 2 is my point,
Yeah.
which would be ludicrous.
Jon Jones. Okay, we're going to leave that because that's going to take up the rest of the time. So we're going to try to get through the last 2 things really, really quick. Jim Light should shut up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
100%.
I don't want to get into this any deeper.
I think
no,
people-
the fact that Dallas is on a winning streak since Jim Light's like tore a strip off of Sega and Ben does not make him right. I don't care that they're in a playoff
No.
spot now.
You don't humiliate your 2 best players, no matter how badly your team's losing. That has never worked ever.
Bryce Harper.
Ooh.
Washington has now twice backed a truckload of money up to his house, and he has said no both times.
Well, I don't think he said no to this last one.
Yeah, it's just like it's apparently they have like re-upped their offer for like even more money, but like if $300 million isn't going to get you to play somewhere, I don't know what is.
I don't get why he wants to leave Washington so bad.
Well, actually, I have a little timeline here, and the thing is real quickly.
You have 30 seconds.
They've had a really good offseason. The Dodgers apparently offered Yasiel Puig to the Nationals at the deadline for Bryce Harper, but then they removed him from that from trade waivers. And the principal owner of the Nationals said $300 million is the best they can do.
Is someone going to offer more than that?
I think when you look around the league, I don't know who can afford it. People are saying the White Sox are a good fit because they're in need of outfield help. Chicago Cubs is a name I hear, and the Dodgers and Yankees and the Red Sox, they're always going to be in there. But if my educated guess, I think he's going to go play for the White Sox.
All right.
How much time do we have?
7 minutes.
7 minutes.
Jon Jones
Okay, Jon Jones.
is a
He needs to get out of the sport.
bunch of expletives.
Yeah. Basically, like, don't want to assume. Like, I don't want to definitively say it because it's like all the pieces aren't there. I'm not sure how long it'll be until Jon Jones's post-drug test will become public or anything like that. I'm sure we'll hear about that. Dana White and Jeff Nowitzki, you're getting a little sketchy on us. That's for sure.
That whole thing was super sketchy.
Absolutely. He fails in Vegas. They detect like the same metabolite, a picogram. I am sick of that word so much. And
An extremely minute amount.
extremely minute amount that they are claiming that is the same metabolite detected in the last one, which was they're saying that is null and is not like
It could not have affected his performance.
Yeah, could not have affected his performance, does not run afoul of UFC rules, it's not performance enhancing. Anyways, so they uproot the entire thing and move it to California, leaving everyone who
week's notice.
week's notice, leaving everyone who bought tickets, hotels, made vacation plans, and everything around that fight. Basically say, screw that. Even their fighters didn't find out until they looked on social media. And it's like, oh, I guess we got to go to California now.
Dana White, his official statement was, if you're in Vegas, enjoy Vegas and watch the fight in a bar.
See, how long until he gets canned? Really?
He doesn't. He's made the company millions of dollars, hundreds of millions of dollars.
It's about the money.
Yeah. At some point, you're just running the reputation of the organization into the ground with this crap, though.
That's not the stuff that bothers me. The USADA stuff is what bothers me.
Yeah.
Because, okay, so we
But,
want to specify... we need to specify, before we continue the conversation at all, that no one has done any illegal conduct. We just think it's all very shady.
Yeah. I think it is safe to assume that the distance, the like USADA being the kind of like policing body of the UFC,
They're the NCAA now.
Yeah, it is merged. They are partnering. They are working off one another.
For the record, the reason why we think that this is the case is Ariel Helwani, who we have a bunch of respect for because
he's the best MMA journalist in the sport.
He's also not afraid of getting himself blacklisted from every UFC event from here to high water.
Yeah. He was also one of like 3 different journalists who questioned both Jones and Dana White, and you can find the video on YouTube of them basically saying like, who gave you a microphone? Like bullying like journalists and saying like
that wasn't him. That was the woman from
Ariel Helwani asked.
Was it Helwani? Did they do it to Helwani too?
Yeah. Yeah, they said like every question that came towards them about the amount of testing and why it wasn't a suspension like Frank Mir, because Frank Mir had a similar thing.
Because I know that woman from I think it was New York, who was in the front row, got lambasted by the 2 of them.
Yeah, they basically ganged up on her to like get her to shut up about the steroid and deflect. Like,
and then Ariel just came in afterwards and was just like, all right, well.
Yeah, well, any steroid question that was asked during that press conference was immediately asked like, what are you, an idiot? Like we already said our piece, like. But it's legit to question because...
And then the thing is, so afterwards, Helwani goes to Dana White and says, I want more information about who because the ruling was Nevada wouldn't give him a license to fight. Mm-hmm. California would because it didn't break California fight rules, which is fine. But the reason why they didn't suspend Jon Jones immediately was because they went to 3 independent experts to ask them if they felt Jon Jones should be suspended. Helwani went to Dana White and said, who were the experts? Dana White said, I don't know. Go and ask USADA. He does. USADA gives him the information, presumably because they know that what they've done technically isn't illegal. And all 3 of the independent researchers for the case were former USADA employees.
Yeah.
Suits and researchers that worked for USADA.
Yeah, and have an interest in maintaining that brand's kind of respect to a certain degree.
And again, no, that's not illegal. But yes, it is hella shady.
Yeah. And like Frank Mir a couple years ago had the same kind of thing. They thought they detected something that was from a previous test and that he had not re-doped, or however you want to phrase it. He got suspended for 2 years. Mm-hmm. And they did this to Jon Jones. They're basically giving Jones the McGregor treatment. You can go and you can drive outside the lines of our rules and regulations all you want, but you make us a crap ton of money, so we are going to move the goalposts for you.
Yep. So we don't care that you do cocaine and that you hit and run pregnant women and that you dope. We don't care.
Yeah. Anthony Smith, I hope you kick the crap out of him. That's apparently the next rumored fight.
Yeah, that is his next fight, apparently.
Is it
like a couple months away, too.
He said he wants to fight like 3 to 4 times this year. So
good for Jon Jones.
Yeah.
I hope you lose every fight from now until eternity.
Yeah.
You want to know what? For all the crap that McGregor's done, at least he doesn't cheat.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Jon Jones is like...
Not that I'm pleased as punch with Conor McGregor either, but at least he didn't cheat.
Yeah.
At least he's not shady about it.
Absolutely.
Amanda Nunes, really, really quick.
Okay. So, Amanda Nunes is currently the
first women's 2-division champion.
And currently the greatest woman fighter on the face of the planet.
Yep.
There's no denying it. Unless...
And to the thousands of people who are listening to this and just went, who? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Basically, in under like a minute, either just over a minute and a half, she took out the 2 most dominant women in MMA. Ronda Rousey and Chris Cyborg, who she murked. I did not.
Yeah.
I knew Nunes had the punching power to stand up. I did not expect that to be a first round thing.
Like, I realized that it wasn't as fast, but it sort of reminded me of McGregor and Aldo.
Yeah, pretty much.
Cyborg wasn't in that fight at all.
No. Nunes. Well, she did the same thing she did to Ronda. She caught her with 1, and she was so dizzy that she was able to catch her with another 3, and she went down.
Anyway, 1 minute left. Johnny's getting the quote really, really quick, but I forget which MMA journalist it was, but some MMA journalist was slandering Nunes.
So it's Darren Ravel, at Darren Ravel on Twitter. Between Rousey and Cyborg, Amanda Nunes has single-handedly killed the most valuable women in sport. That, in there, is 1.5 out of 2 true, because Cyborg, I think it can still come back.
Anyway, yeah, sure.
Brutally damaging to the UFC, Nunes isn't the same marketing ballpark as either of those 2. Which is, Kaylee?
UFC's fault. and nobody else's.
It's the same thing with Namajunas, or you were talking about like someone like a Tyron Woodley, or even Mighty Mouse. Like
who they just ditched.
Yeah.
Even though he was the best pound for pound fighter in the world at the time.
Yeah. Oh, you can't have a marketing for someone who murks all your top competitors. Oh yeah, Matt Hughes was a real bum and didn't make the UFC any money. That's for sure.
Anyway, that's all the time that we have here. We're taking really close to the hour mark. This has been Overtime on CHSR 979 FM from Fredericton, New Brunswick, Canada. Thank you all for tuning in live with us here and online on YouTube. You can get a hold of us at Gmail. It's overtimechsr@gmail.com. You can also find us on Facebook and Instagram at overtimechsr, and we will see you next week.